Oh, okay, and we're live. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Musetta Stone Book Club. And, well, it's been a while. It's been a really long time since we've done this, but it's great because we got a chance to read another book. And what was really cool, I think, Amanda, your cover was different than mine?
My cover was. Mine's right here. It looks like this.
Yeah, oh, okay, see, my one looks like this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember when I ordered mine through Chapters.
Hmm. Okay, because I got mine from the link that Karen sent me, I believe. So I got this from was it the Book
Yeah.
Depository?
Book depository, yeah.
Yeah. I got mine through Chapters. It wasn't like that expensive through Chapters, and it came fairly quickly. But it's interesting that you have different artwork.
Yeah, it is.
I did.
Anyways, before we continue, let me introduce everybody. Let's start first with Karen. Karen, how have you been? We haven't chatted in a very long time.
I've been pretty good. I finished up a contract that I was on, and I've been sort of TOCing in and out of schools, doing a lot of classroom, doing a lot of music, and it's been
Nice.
quite fun.
What books have you read since the last time we chatted?
Oh my goodness.
A lot of them?
Chimes! I've read the Chimes! I'm trying to think of even what ones I've read.
Have you started on Fellsword?
Yeah, I'm right at the beginning of it. My best friend and I are reading through it, and it's
Let me know how you think about that one.
yeah.
Let me know.
We instantly remembered how many people there are, and then every single chapter, it's like, oh, here's 20 more new people. We're going, oh, yeah, okay.
All right, well, at least you're reading, which is great.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So are you gonna, like, you're TOCing till, like, end of June and then just seeing what else is out there in September?
Basically, so that I'm kind of off and just waiting and seeing what's out there for basically spending the entire summer going, am I going to have a job in September? No? Okay.
Well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, how have you been?
Tired.
Tired?
We finished up our Lion King shows.
Right. How did that go?
It went so well. Stop. Sorry, the dog's eating the chair. We had 7 shows, which is
Wow.
cool. And they went really well. The kids were super psyched. We were pretty much sold out of every show, if not like completely sold out and a little bit more. So that ended like a couple of weeks ago, and it's just life is just slowly starting to come back to normal. But now it's just practicing for my final concert, and then I'm done, and the school year is done. And our VP left because he got a job as a principal.
Okay.
So we've had a sit-in vice principal for the past month or so.
Okay. I feel bad for the guy or girl. It's like all of a sudden just being thrown into a school like at the end of like school.
Well, I think he bid on it.
Okay.
But it was very hush-hush because they didn't want to say anything unless it actually happened. But I think he was actually asked to be acting vice principal of this other school. And then just today we got the verification that he will now be principal at that school.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's pretty cool for him though.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like we thought that we've been actually trying to keep him so that when our principal retires, he moves up. But
Right.
happen.
What have you been reading?
The
I've
dog
been reading
book.
a lot of. Pardon?
The dog book you just showed us.
The dog book? Oh, yes, I've been reading this one because I don't have the cover on because I don't read hard covers with the covers because they tear. I've been reading Shoe Dog, which is really good in my opinion. I've also been reading a lot. For my master's class, I read a book called Proust of the Squid and The Book Whisperer and one called Tick, Tap, Click, Read, I believe it's called. All about everything's about transliteracy and about how students need a good environment to read in, and then they need support. And there is a link between poverty and whether and like literacy levels. There actually is a link.
So like heavy stuff.
Like actual, like serious stuff, yeah. Not anything fun yet. My class ends in like 2 weeks, so I'm excited to go back to reading something else.
Right. Well, Nice to hear from you. I have read 3 books since we've last chatted. I've read the 3rd book in the Trader Sun cycle, which is The Dreadworm. I just finished that. I just finished that Thursday last week. So I
Oh my
started the Chimes, but before The Dreadworm, I actually read another book called A Darker Shade of Magic.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I think I saw that on your thing. Yeah.
like, it's not bad. I thought it was pretty good. It's a really short read. The 2nd book is way longer, though. I haven't bought it yet. And I just found out today that guy Gavriel Kay has a new book out, and I'm super excited. I posted a picture on Facebook. And also, all of Guy Gavriel Kay's books have been re-released in a new edition from Penguin. So they're all new artwork, and I was like, ooh, I need to buy. But I won't ever read them because I'm not the type of person to reread a book. So I just want, it's like a collection now. I just want them because they're so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah. So I don't know, we'll see. But those are the 3 books that I've read, and I just finished the Chimes today, so.
If someone were to dive into Guy Gavriel Kay, what would you suggest as the first book of his to read?
I think based off of length, I think you should try maybe Tagana. I think Tagana is a really good book. I enjoyed that one a lot because it was pretty fun to read and it was really, really easy. A Song for Arbonne is also very, very good as well. Another short book which is really, really good from Guy Gavriel Kay is Last Light of the Sun. So pretty much what Guy Gavriel Kay does is he just I'm stalling until Karen gets back. Pretty much what he does is he takes a lot of really cool kind of like historical settings. So a lot of his books are fantastical, but he'll do things. For example, one of his books, River of Stars, he takes 12th Dynasty China and retells the story of the 3 kingdoms, but through the eyes of 2 make-believe characters. And that's what's really cool. And then he has a huge fascination with kind of like Europe, like pre-Roman, like, the Roman Empire and stuff like that. So there's a lot of just like, he sort of example, like Lines of Alrasan talks about the Iberian Peninsula and the whole like the relationships between the Jewish, the Christians, and the Muslims. But you don't actually like he doesn't name them, those ones. Like one of them are like the Children of the Sun, which is Christianity, Children of the Moon, Children of the Stars. So it's very, very cool, and there's like a little bit of magic. Oh, Karen, I just mentioned like 3 books. I think Tagana, Song for Arbonne, or Last Light of the Sun.
Okay.
Yeah. And those 3 are really, really good. I think because they're short.
Yes.
And it allows people to kind of dig into it. Karen knows I love Guy Gavriel Kay a lot. But I will say my
month. I've read this one.
Yeah, I know.
Great.
I still have 5 books left that he's written that I haven't read, and I'm portioning myself now. I will only read one Guy Gavriel Kay book a year.
I don't know if I could do that. That's just so much.
Yeah, I just like the way that the pacing goes with his book, which actually we can probably talk about the pacing of this book. So why don't we switch? I can geek out about Guy Gavriel Kay another time. But why don't we talk about this book? Okay, so we're going to try and go through the book in those kind of like 4 settings again, like last time. First of all, like overall impressions, and then plot and storyline, characters, whether you like some or not, and then music as a central theme to the book. So I'll go first this time. It started off really slow for me. And it was very, very difficult for me to really get into it. It was more so, for me, it wasn't the pacing that was. It was just I was really confused because there was, like, and I thought it was really cool now that I finished the book and thinking about the beginning again. I thought it was really, really cool in the sense that, hey, this premise that people forget their memories, right? That's why it felt really repetitive, because that's what they were doing. They were just doing the same thing every day again and again and again. And what I thought was really interesting was there's this kind of like slow pace of how your main character slowly remembers things, and then he slowly remembers more details, and all of a sudden he gets thrown into this like thing, which I found kind of sad because like it was like this much of the book that was like the ending part. Yeah. And I was reading the last couple of pages, I was like, oh my goodness, he's not going to do it, he's not going to do it, he's not going to do it. and yeah, so that was I liked the book. I have some things to say about maybe like the use of language in the book later on, because it's just not my style. It was very flowery. I thought it was really, really cool, but it was just the way that it was written. It felt I just felt kind of it was like a little bit static for me in some places. Yeah, but that's my overall impressions. I thought it was a pretty fun book to read. It was very interesting to see how this author, which is her first book too, by the way, how she used the music and all this kind of like things about memory and everything, and try to kind of piece everything together. I thought it was really interesting, and I'd be interested to read some of her future books. If her first book was like already pretty substantial,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what other things she will come up with in the future. So pretty cool. Kudos to you. Why don't we go to Karen next? Karen, what were your overall thoughts?
All right. My overall thoughts was I started reading this book and I was a little bit scared because I thought, oh no, this book's going to be terrible. I'm not going to like it. But it like you said, it was like you got a few pieces of the jigsaw and you very slowly were able to put them together, and once you had the whole picture, the story just took off. But unfortunately, yeah, I agree with you, Matt. The payoff in the end felt very short in comparison to the build-up. Maybe less so than Bel Canto. Maybe, I don't know. But it's the same thing where there's that huge build-up and then the payoff isn't like you want more, which is good. It's great to leave us like that. Overall, I sort of in the middle of reading it was going, oh, okay, this is fine. But as I've thought about it longer, so I read this a month ago. As I've thought about it and let it kind of percolate in my mind and just sort of stew around, I've come to think through a lot of ideas and find myself picking out things and thinking on it and finding that it's actually offering me more in-depth after having read it versus having read it. It's kind of like any literature book that you read, you kind of go, it's okay, but then the discussion from it ends up being a lot more fuller than what your overall first impressions were.
All right, Amanda, you ready for your impressions?
My overall impressions I felt it was okay. I didn't like you said, Matt. I had a really hard time kind of like really getting into it. I think I read the first 20 pages at least 3 times because I thought I was missing something. And I think that's what Karen mentioned with like you get the little bits and the little bits, and then you're kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? So you're kind of left with this pile, and then all of a sudden something comes, and you're like, oh, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. I also have a few things to say about the language that was used in this book. And a couple of things that surprised me, like Simon and Lucien, which I totally didn't completely expect, but I'm kind of glad was there. Kind of what you guys said have already covered what my overall impressions were. Like, especially with the payoff, I felt it was a better payoff than Bel Canto, but it was the same thing where you're building, and it's done. When this one could have easily gone on for at least a little bit more to kind of see what happens after the fact. It kind of like, this is our goal, we've done it, and now there's nothing kind of to follow it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we can just move straight into plot, since a lot of the stuff that we have either like found as really cool or kind of serious issues we have to do with some of the plotting, right, and the pacing of the book. Yeah. I think, I mean, Amanda, you don't read a lot of fantasy, right?
I don't, and that might be one of the reasons why I found it hard to get into. But at the same time, I just found it difficult with kind of how she wrote it. And this is bridging into the whole words and whatnot, but being a music person, I understood a lot of these words. But I remember I showed Mike a page, and he's like, I don't know what this word means. I don't know what this word means. I don't know what this word... Like, you can deduce it, but as a music student, like, I know what they mean. would anybody else really know what they mean? It's not exactly common everyday language.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it obviously sounds like she was writing for a very specific audience. Like
Yeah.
unlike Bel Canto, where it was an author who had no musical background, who was just doing a lot of research and trying to create this world that anyone could kind of read and be like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. I think for her, she was trying to she was definitely going at a certain angle because I mean, after a while, you understand that presto or lento means slow or fast. You get it, right?
Yeah.
But then there's certain points where she does use a bunch of different terminology, like tutti. She used it like maybe twice, and then she cast it a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that point where there's that. I actually found that I know we had like a quick conversation on our Facebook group chat, and I was casually making fun of what was going on because I thought it was okay. I thought it was interesting that she would use terminology. I was confused as to why she only used it for certain words and not certain things. Like, for example, why didn't she use accelerando or, that kind of stuff? Or stringendo when his heart moved quickly, right? I think the biggest issue I had wasn't even with the terminology. It was with the fact that, you know how when you're writing an essay or you're writing even a book and you're trying to use descriptive words to mean exactly the same thing? But you use different ones, right? You don't say he said, right? You would go he exclaimed, he replied. But the problem was she kept on using presto for everything. I think at one point in a paragraph she used presto to exclaim or to describe two completely different things. One was like his mind went really quickly, and the other one was running. And then I was like, okay, see, this is why I have issues with it, because she's using that same word to describe everything that was fast. And that was the only thing that kind of threw me away. Like, I thought that, I was like, well, it's like, in English language, we have more words to describe running quickly than just quickly. But it's the same with Italian terms. You could have used allegro, you could have used vivace, right, or vite, or vivo. Like, there's so many different words. It didn't always have to be presto, even if she used prestissimo to make it sound like they were even more urgent. I don't know.
I wonder if she stuck to using those ones because she didn't want to completely alienate, so that people would look up that word and then whenever she used it, it was there. But I totally agree with you in the fact that it's incredibly jarring to see it and then see it again and then see it again, and you start picking up and then you just start counting how many times, and it completely takes you out of the book.
It's like a drinking game all of a sudden, right? You just drink every single time she used presto. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if like the whole fantasy, because I have to say a lot of the books that I read when it comes to fantasy books, even at the very beginning, like they tend to move much more quickly than this book.
Yeah.
I think it's because thank goodness the cast was very small in this book. Because like what Karen was mentioning before with the Trader Sun cycle, you go through and you're just like, okay, here's one captain and he has like 15 generals, right? And then like all these other people, you're just like, how am I supposed to remember all these people? And at half the time you're like, should I remember these people? Because they might just all die. At least with this one, you're like, okay, you start off with like a ragtag of 5, and you slowly kind of evolve from that. Like you get a couple of names here, get a couple of names there, and it was nice that we only had to really follow 2 people's lives.
Yeah.
But it was difficult because, for me anyways, because I was like, okay, so they're doing this thing for a while. There's not much book left. I hope they stop doing this thing, because like she spent almost a quarter of the book talking about how they would go down to the river and try to find this palladium, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's a lot of the book spent on just kind of doing this repetitive motion and like kind of explaining how the lives are. What's the purpose of this book? And then like I think like maybe even like halfway through the book, you're like, oh, okay, something is like there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And there needs to be some type of like resolution of some sort. How is this going to work? And then it goes, okay, kind of cool.
So the device of having to repeat every single day and us being confused totally works because he's also confused. That's the point. We're supposed to be. I didn't catch on to that until, like a quarter of the way through the book, and then I went, oh, it's written like this on purpose. Okay, that makes sense. But then it became that you were just living the same day over and over. Yeah. But then I guess as a reader, you become frustrated just as he becomes frustrated because he knows he has to remember something, but he can't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was something else that you had said that I had another point, but now I can't remember it.
So, but anyways, like you mentioned, like, so do we think that this is a cool device? Like, this is like breaking the third wall, right? Trying to get us to feel how that character feels by just being frustrated and confused. Like, so, like, was this a cool thing? Like, was the frustration justified because the book gave us kind of like we mentioned that the payoff wasn't as big as it was, but I mean, mind you, the payout for Belcanto was even smaller. But like yeah, was it worth it to go through this journey and get to the end and be like, yeah, okay, you know what? The first part was really difficult, but the last part made up for it.
I think this is one of those books that it gets better upon a second reread, and I'm not sure if I would reread it, but I think that because you know where it's going, it's easier to now go back and then go, oh, I see where the seeds are being planted. Because we don't see them at the beginning because we're going, I don't understand, and that was my point, where the plot's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't see where the plot is because you're confused, he's confused, and you go, well, what's the whole point of this?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But to go off of what you said with the whole feeling, what the characters are feeling, like it kind of makes sense because you're repeating, and all of a sudden there's something different. You're like, oh, thank God, there's something different. So like that might be like with the characters, it's kind of like, oh, I finally realized it, that there is something more than just this day. And as a reader, you're kind of like, oh, thank God, there's something that's more than just this day, and now there's somebody else. Like when they I forgot her name, I'm sorry.
Claire?
Is the old lady in the house.
Mary?
Yeah, Mary. When they finally meet Mary, I'm like, oh my gosh, another character where that actually like talks to them and communicates, and she's actually kind of entertaining for that 15 pages that she was around. I was like enthralled in that 15 pages.
Mm-hmm. But hey, Jemima was really cool, right? She was a deaf girl that could solfege faster than lightning, and
that is true.
You could barely keep up with that. That was really cool. But here's the thing. Okay, so we had this really cool thing at the very beginning of the book where it shows you all the solfege.
Oh my gosh! Okay, I was just gonna say this. What are these wrong, isn't it?
Isn't fa?
Fa is different than how we learned it, but I don't know.
But it could be the fact that she's from Auckland, right? It could be a different solfege system.
Yeah, that's true. I was looking at this, and I'm like, I remember sitting there, and I was doing it to myself, like a whole bunch of times. I'm like, I'm pretty sure fa is this.
Yeah.
Of how we learn fa. So I'm like, is it wrong or is it just different?
Yeah. My only one thing with the solfege, I thought it was really cool. But she only used it for like the first third of the book, and then after that, like they signed farewell, and then they don't sign ever again. And the only person that signed was Jemima, but she signed so fast that you didn't get. Like, I was like, oh, okay, I guess like what Karen mentioned, maybe she just didn't want to alienate everybody. But it would have been really cool if like like Jemima signs do mi sol la so mi fa, right? And you're like, oh yeah, cool, I can do that too.
Just like this.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I was hoping that it would be a larger part because she made the publishers print an entire page for this thing. An entire page. That's a lot of money.
You know what? I think Karen had a point that it is one of those books where you read it once through, you kind of just like make yourself read it the first time, and then you have to like take a break and then go back to it, because it could, I'm kind of, like, in the past day-ish, I kind of come to realize that maybe this book is one of those books that is read in 2 levels. Like, if you're a surface reader, you don't have to really, you would probably skip over the solfege page. And as you're going through, when you get the gist of presto and lento, you're kind of, okay, whatever, and then you just go through. But then if you are one of those deeper readers, I guess, or if you look into that musical side of it, there's so much more to it. So I guess it, in some ways, it's a surprisingly well-balanced book. Mm-hmm. Although I do think that it is very specific niche market in her target audience, if it is musically trained people.
Because I thought it was like like a lot of gangs and a lot of stuff. They have symbols, right? They have different sign languages.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be something like that, where they develop their own type of like solfege language in which to speak with
Yeah.
each other, because music, like be singing is so forbidden or something like that. But you have, on the one hand, you're like, okay, this is going to be interesting because like right at the very beginning, he signs thank you. You're like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like a complete different language, like a sub language on top of your oral language. But then he gets thrown into was it the Rover Pact? I think that's what they're called, right? And then they have a leader who can sing everything. Like he can just sing everything. So there's like I was just like, oh, but he could have just done like this, right? And then showed you where all like the hidden passages are.
But that's got to do with his training.
Yeah.
Too. That's why he's got that over Simon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it would have just been really cool if they like had a couple of more places. Like I would have been really cool if they just like showed me how thank you sounded.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
But they did. There were other elements that the music kept going, like where he had to sing certain melodies to whoever the lady was to be apprentice, and he couldn't remember the melody, and so she couldn't accept him.
Mm-hmm,
but then we found out that it wasn't that to take him on as apprentice. It was for the was it the birds?
Ravens Guild.
Thank you. This is what happens when you read it a month ago and don't remember things.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. The thing is, like, you get thrown into this world where all of a sudden this woman named Nettie is super, super important, and then she's gone for a long time, and then she comes back, and you realize that she's actually not even the person they were looking for. It's this other chick named Mary. So like and then like you go to Mary, and she's like, "Who's this Nettie chick? I don't know who this is." I was like, so like the whole point is like, okay, so she was kind of useless.
But if you think about it, if we're in Simon's mind and Simon is this confused, just imagine what everybody else's mind is like. They're that disjointed, and so you end up going to see Mary, and she makes absolutely no sense. Yes, she's giving you things, but she makes no sense. That's because of the whole waking up every single day and going, I don't know what happened the day before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. How did you guys feel about the pacing of when they got into is it called the Capitol? Where they got into like where the Carillon is?
Yeah.
Because that literally was like the last sixth of the book.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just thought it was just like, oh, she doesn't have that many pages left.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought with Bel Canto too. I was like, when is this gonna end? Because there's literally this much left, and there's no end, and I don't know what's happening.
I was thinking that it was going to be one of those cliffhangers where.
Yes, I totally agree. I thought it was going to go book 2 of it.
And you went.
Yeah. No, not a sequel.
Oh.
I don't know if I could handle a sequel.
Well, when what was it? When everything falls down, I thought that was going to be the end. And I was like, cool, Lucian's dead, Simon's screwed, the whole city's a mess, and the end. Yay, there we go.
Yeah.
I thought I kind of sort of was expecting it, but I was still surprised that, okay, based on the amount of time between Sonia being confronted with the truth.
Yes.
And Martha dying.
Yeah.
And her taking action.
Yeah.
That was literally 4 pages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was just like, okay, as a person, like if I was in my world and I was always doing everything that, that I was told of me because I just thought that, the order was amazing. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden to see something like that, would it have only would I have only, changed my mind immediately like that? Like, was it enough for me to destroy everything that was there, right?
I feel like she had been thinking about that before, because when their mother died, I'm pretty sure that's when she started having doubts. Mm-hmm. So, and then the Martha thing was just the catalyst. That's what made her go, okay, now I get it. This is not what it should be.
Yeah, I still thought it was really cool that she sacrificed herself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it sucks that she died, but it was really cool that I was just like, because like the whole point of the book, he was just like, oh no, Lucien, right?
Yeah.
Finally gets there, not him,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, that is really cool, like, because like they had mentioned how like he was the talented one and she was the hardworking one, but he always got like the fame and glory.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that maybe it's because I read a lot of these books. But the one thing that really tipped me off on the fact that she could have been the one playing was because she's like, play it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted to hear it one more time, and I was just like, I don't know, if I heard something profound, I wouldn't need to. I want to savor it. I want to sit there and listen to it, right? But she wanted to listen to it one more time. So that meant that at some point, she had already made up her mind at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So-
I thought it was...
Sorry.
Sorry, that was it. I was just saying, like, it just... Everything from then to the end, I couldn't, like, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, and I couldn't predict the last couple of pages. Like, the whole, like, you know, them getting captured, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, I read the ending about 3 times because I was that satisfied with it. I just went, I have to read this again, and I read it again, and I have to read this again, and I read it again. And I wonder if Sonia's death would have made more of an impact if we had met her sooner in the book and formed an attachment. Because I did feel like she was sort of thrown in at the end, and then she died, and then it was like, okay,
That's it. Yeah.
that's it. I mean, it is a really cool ending, and I think that was perfect. But I feel like I wasn't really attached to her, so I didn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Would it have a bigger impact on you if the person who sacrificed themselves was the mom? Like Lucien's mom, because we've known about her for a while.
I think so.
Would have been a bigger trigger point knowing that because we knew this character was alive, right?
Yeah.
And she smuggled him out. Was she playing the Caroline and killing herself been much more of an impact compared to the sister that we didn't know much about?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably. Because I kind of knew that she existed. Like, I knew that she was there somewhere. I didn't actually really expect her to make that much of a difference in the book, right? Because you kind of knew, I don't know, I guess it was from the beginning of the book. I kind of always knew that Lucian had a sister. But at the same time, I'm kind of sitting there, I'm like, well, she's not in the book, she's not in the book, she's not in the book, she's not in the book. All of a sudden, she's in the book, and then she sacrifices herself and saves the entire place from the curling. And you're kind of like, what?
She's like the Cho Chang of this book, right?
Yeah, right? She just kind of like randomly kind of occurs and happens, and you're like, well, where did you come from? Like, cool, thanks for saving us, but the same.
Yeah, and she comes in and she's just like, I don't like you because you were the favorite. I was like, what? Seriously? Tension now? It's almost the end of the book, guys.
Of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I still thought it was a really cool ending because I wasn't expecting it. And it was really interesting. It kind of reminds me kind of like, you know, at the end of like V for Vendetta, right? Where they finally topple the government, but then you don't know what happens after. You don't know if they survive. You don't know, like, you know, all you know is like he just wants to go to the river. Yeah. And that's where it ends.
I like that we see music as this weapon to neutralize a society, and then in order to destroy that weapon, we use music again.
Yeah.
It's using music to destroy music, and it's really kind of cool. I like that concept.
Yeah. I do too. I thought it was really awesome. I just wanted to find out more about. Oh, she's gone again. I really wanted to find out more about the orchestra.
I know there wasn't anything mentioned. It's kind of you worked this long to make your way into the orchestra, and you worked hard to do all this and to be in these high positions, but
because like in the end everyone's just like, okay, the most important thing is this Caroline who, like, you know, that like controls the society and gives chime sickness. But like what was the business of the orchestra? Like what were they supposed to do? Like were they traveling musicians that like subsumed people? Or like, because like some the elders are the only ones that have palladium instruments, right? Everybody else has silver or whatever. I was like, okay, that's great. So is it literally just like North Korea where they just employ people but they don't really use them ever? I don't really understand the concept because like I was like, oh, cool. So there's this apprenticeship where like, you know, people apprentice under other musicians or instrument makers, and they become something, and or maybe they have this object where they can show off their skill, and they enter into this bigger thing. I was like, oh, cool. How does that work? What's going on? And then and I never really got a lot of explanations. Like, I knew people got in, and everyone was like, yeah, get in. But like that one instance where he goes down, and then he remembers that there was this old man who gives like a piece of wire, like string, to his mother to remember his son by. I was like, okay, so this son goes to the orchestrum, or goes on somewhere, right? Or gets apprenticed to London, and in the hopes that he becomes a musician and in orchestra. But then there's no benefit for the family because they're just gonna forget about him anyways. I was like, okay, so this is kind of sad because like they don't get like it's not like you're in orchestra, therefore you are exempt from chamber music. Because they're in orchestra, no, they're in this orchestra, it doesn't exempt their family. They doesn't give them any extra favors. They're just like, oh, they're in orchestra now.
Yeah. Well, the only position that was ever kind of emphasized as of being important is the I can't even remember, and I only finished it a couple of days ago. Was the guy who writes for the Carillion, right? That's the only position that emphasized as having any form of importance. Is we need. That's the one that you want to be. You want to write the music for Vespers, and you want to write the morning. You want to write the song for this and that and whatever. And then everything else is kind of like, oh yeah, if you're in, cool.
Yeah. So like, was that what Lucien was trying? Like, he was aspiring to be that. Like, that was what his role was going to be at one point. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think
it could just be that because we had Simon as our protagonist or our narrator, that we weren't able to see into that world, and
I totally agree.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was kind of left very open.
Yeah.
And that's that's kind of a lame excuse for lack of world building, but at the same time it's kind of nice to leave it open so that we can.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously this book was not like was it third? It wasn't third person because you never really got a chance to know Lucien's thoughts until he looked at his memories, right? It was always through Simon's eyes. It wasn't like chapter 2 we're gonna go into Lucien and then from his perspective. It was always Simon's perspective. Yeah. So you know what? Actually, that's a really good point because I was gonna say it would have been nice to see him see Lucien compose, but if Simon doesn't see it, we don't see it.
Yeah.
Like if we don't see anything. All we see is just what he's like. Actually, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I don't know. The book was. I think the ending was kind of cool. I just.
Yeah.
I think now that I've read the book. Yeah.
Want more?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm actually pretty happy with this. Why don't we go, since we're talking about Simon as the point of view character? Why don't we go into characters? I have to say, I almost forgot the names of every single character in the first half.
Yes.
Because I was just like, okay, so we have Lucien, Simon, Claire, Brennan, and Abel. I only remember them because I read that section again. I almost completely I was like, oh, okay, Brennan's the one that throws the rock at the very beginning to hit him. Abel's the one that gets captured by those two other people, right? Gets beaten up. Claire's the one that joins, but then she can't remember that she joins. And then there's Lucien, this this fae elf person with blinded eyes. So I was like, okay, I got it after reading it. But my issue was I had invested all of my hopes on this Nettie girl.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. So I was like, once she was gone, I was like, oh, okay. I put 20% of my energy into you. Now I gotta pace myself now. I gotta now add as little effort as possible because this book it's not short. Maybe there's other characters. So I had to look back on it. I mean, I guess for me the whole thing with Claire was interesting in the sense that for her, because she doesn't have Simon's abilities, because Simon didn't even know that he was super special, right? He just thought that everybody could do it, right? And he realizing that she actually was just digging up stuff, but she wasn't creating object memory. Instead, she was actually cutting herself so that way she could remember through pain and through some type of reaction to remember certain things, but she couldn't do what he could do, right? And then him realizing it was kind of awesome. I guess Abel and Brennan were kind of throwaway characters because we didn't really know who they were, and we didn't actually. I mean, I didn't care. If Abel had died, it was meh, whatever, he died, right? But he didn't. So.
I totally agree with you. While I liked the story and I loved just all of the ideas, the characters, to me, maybe they aren't flat, but I just felt no attachment whatsoever to any of them.
Yeah,
And
I would agree with that too.
when things were happening, I was like, oh, okay. Like the Lucian Simon thing, I went, okay. That came out of nowhere, but sure, why not?
I feel like that whole Lucian Simon thing was thrown in there, like she was. I thought of the idea of like dipping the toe in that cold water and then immediately taking it out. It's like, here it is. No, it's not. And then later in the book, it's kind of like, here it is. Okay, no, it's not. Like it's there. So kind of it was.
It's good that it wasn't the focus.
It wasn't the focus. I think it would have been something that could have added a little more to maybe build that connection with the character, because like you said, I didn't connect to anybody. Honestly, the character that I actually liked the most, surprisingly, was Mary, the crazy old woman who like randomly sang and threw things at Simon. And, like, I like her because she is not as not polite, but she's not as like stoic as everybody is. Everything is. It seems every character is like, this is what they're like. This is what they're like. And they seem very
robotic.
Yeah, robotic, kind of almost reserved in a way, even when they're planning out this entire overthrow of the Carillion. Everything just seems so kind of, okay, this is the next step. And then comes this lady who's just kind of like, I'm going to sing at you and be nuts and make you eat stuff and look at memories till you throw up.
So, are the flat characters? I know it seems such like an excuse, but are they flat and they're robotic because of the chimes? The chimes are placating the entire population, and the only reason why Mary's eccentric is because she keeps touching everybody else's memories, and she's in so many memories that she's just kind of lost it.
Yeah, because I mean, like the author spent a lot of time like telling us how. Like, at one point, Simon was like, I really miss Claire getting the leaves to make tea.
Mm-hmm.
I really miss Abel and Brennan doing this in the morning. Every morning we did this. Like, I would get off of my hammock, open the drapes, and I would see that. Like, she spent a lot of time making them super mundane and super monotonous.
Yeah.
Right? But it's because all they can do is just repeat that motion because that's all they remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like, I cared more about Callum and Jemima compared to Abel, Claire, and Brennan, and I had read about them for half of a book. And Callum and Jemima were only there for like maybe 10, and I loved them. They were awesome. Like, there was no character development. Like, all you knew was like, oh, he's kind of older, you know, he has a square build, and she was deaf. Right? But and that was it. Right? But I was like, oh, these characters are amazing. Like, even with Martha, when she came in, I was like, I don't know much about Martha, but she sounds like a mother bear. This is great. I love Mother Bear. Mother Bear, right? So I think it's because of that. Yeah, you're right. I think the original characters, beginning characters, were just flat because of the chimes, and then the other characters, like Jemima was fine because she couldn't hear the chimes, right? Yeah. And you don't know, like, you never find out how Callum is affected by the chimes or if he is affected at all. And he probably is affected. But you never know that. And then Martha, because she's in the order, she's not affected by it either. So like there's some type of like she had some personality, right? She was quick, right? She was smart ass, right? Like I imagine like, you know, a Queen Latifah, you know, kind of thing. Like she was interesting because of that, and then Sonia was interesting because she was resentful. But because the first characters didn't have that, like they don't have memories to be resentful for, so they were kind of just boring. And to be honest, when they left, I was like, I don't care if they die.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Because like even Lucien was just like because like Simon was like, I'm gonna really miss them. Like that really sucks. And Lucien's like, they'll forget about us in 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. That's literally what he said. Because like that was the truth. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And actually, something that you brought up, just to, like backtrack a little bit. I thought the change from we're gonna get all this palladium and sell it to we're gonna overthrow the government was like a huge like contrast. But because we were focusing on Simon as a character, we don't know if Lucien was planning this all along. We have no idea, right? That's why for me I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I see that if I were to read it again, I totally agree. If I were to read it again, knowing what I know now, the book will be a lot more compelling.
And see, and that's where you kind of go, oh, if I reread this again, maybe it would make more sense. Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. But you definitely come at it from it with a different perspective.
Yeah. And I was really I was surprised that all of the I mean, I get it, like elders means, older, wiser people, but like, she went into a lot of effort to say, hey, these elders are actually really old. So I wonder if that was like a jab. You know what? Like, I wonder if that was like a jab at the establishment, being like, old people are kind of holding society back, kind of thing, or like this whole old way of thinking, this old way, this traditional way, and it needs to go away. Because I think like all they cared about was perfection, right? And all they cared about was like sonority and harmony. Yeah. Whereas like like you mentioned, the one thing that destroyed all of that was discord and dissonance, right? And yeah, that was really cool. But yeah, I didn't care for those 3 packed runners.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, no, they just, whatever.
Yeah, I know.
There was one part that I wish could have been expanded upon, and again, forgive me, I read it so long ago, where one of the members of the order goes into a house and he writes a message on...
Yeah, the fugue. He writes a fugue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't really explained completely, and then
Well, okay. So what happens is I think it's Simon and Brennan. They're doing their run to get the rabbits out of the traps, right? And then they see this order, so they hide, and they see this guy who's like, okay, the order shouldn't even be here because that's weird. They never come down here. And then like there's this weird situation where there's like a girl in the tree or something like that, and then like he like knocks her down and takes out some. I don't know. I like glossed over that because I had no idea what was going on. Yeah. Like, I think did the guy in the order kill the girl? I don't remember. But anyways, at the end, like he writes out a fugue on the wall, and then like Lucien like I don't know how he sees, but apparently he saw the fugue even though he's blind. Yeah. And then he's just like, oh, literally it just means we will find you. Like.
Yeah.
Well, whatever ended up happening with a fugue, like interestingly enough, I was really interested in this one part where they're like, oh, what is on the wall? It's like, oh, it's music written on the wall. Okay, what comes out of that?
And it's like apparently he mentioned it was like a Bach like counterpoint.
It was like counterpoint.
So I was like, which cantata? I want to know the cantata. Which prelude and fugue?
What happens?
Is it the organ fugue? Is it the grande fugue?
Is that the whole, how the person who writes the songs for the carillon, they add all of the little melodies and they twist them up and down, but I feel like, and Lucien was being trained for that, and maybe he was one of the few people that could actually read the message. Yeah. Because he had been trained with that.
Yeah, well, because like it's mentioned that no one can read anything, right? So they left that there intentionally, knowing that only he could read it, right? But yeah, I totally agree. Like it came, like that part came, and then it went, and I was like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was sort of just this little sploosh, and you got taken out of it, and you went.
And it's gone.
Oh, yeah, and then from there it cascades into this huge thing where it's like we're going to overthrow the government, and we're going to figure out how to do it somehow. Right? Yeah. And it has everything to do with your song, even though it actually didn't. But I mean, I get it, it's like the Ravens Guild thing. It's part of like a story of how like they discriminated and persecuted this one little group. But like for the most part, I was like, okay, so technically you didn't really need Simon there.
Nope.
Technically, right? Because like the thing is, like Lucien could have done all of that without finding who Mary is.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like there's something about that relationship where they need each other, but at the same time they didn't need each other. They did need each other at the same time, and it's interesting to read that, and you're kind of wondering, okay, so is one of them going to leave? Is one of them just there because? Is there anything else?
Wasn't Simon the connection to Mary, and Simon the connection to the
Ravens Guild? Yeah.
Ravens Guild.
Yeah,
And that's what the connection
was. The song for the Ravens Guild.
And the Ravens Guild, and it was them coming together.
Yeah, but the thing was, like, even when Simon first met, when Lucien first met Simon, right? So, Lucien just noted the fact that Simon is an object memory guy. Like, he could do that. He had a special ability. But he had no idea that he was part of this Ravens Guild up until, like, a little bit later when he starts digging a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, I guess it's fate, right? It's fate that these characters come together, and that's just how books are written. But for me, I was just like, this is very, very coincidental, right? It's very kind of like everything kind of like, oh, it's great that, you know, there's this guy who has this ability who just so happens to be the son of a Ravens Guild member, who just so happens to also have the same ability as his mother, who just so happens to have all this stuff, and who just so happens to need all this information in order for you to kind of, like, you know?
That's fiction, right?
Yeah.
Really coincidental.
You don't want to get too much into it. You just gotta go, okay, just for the sake of it, everything's coincidental.
Yeah. Because I think the most important part of the whole connection between Simon and Lucien was the fact that Lucien needed those memories and those melodies to write into his piece of music what he was going to transmit to the entire world.
Yeah.
Right. That was the most important thing. That was the last piece of the puzzle that he needed. So there's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Sonia, man, Sonia.
Sonia, you're.
Because where did the father come from?
Nowhere.
I didn't even he just showed up for like a paragraph, and then and he was gone.
Yeah, but this was one of the big issues I had with this, is that the only two characters that are around long enough to even develop a relationship with were Simon and Lucien, and I just couldn't do it. Unfortunately, even though they're the main characters, I just couldn't empathize with, like, there was nothing I could really empathize with. I knew that they were suffering because they couldn't remember anything, and I was kind of like, yeah, okay. And it was unfortunate that they have all these other little minor characters that have just kind of so much more personality.
Yeah,
like, even Sonia had more personality, because she's like, what? My world
but did they have personality because they weren't affected by the chimes?
Yeah.
But Sonia was. Sonia was part of that entire inner circle. But I even found myself liking Sonia more than Simon and Lucien.
Yeah.
Which was, I found interesting in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The thing is, I don't think Sonia was actually affected by it because they were protected with Palladium, right? The whole order is not affected by the Carillon. The Carillon is literally only there to affect everybody else outside of the order.
So maybe that's what, looping way back in our conversation, that's why people wanted to be in the orchestrum. Is that they wanted to be taken out of being controlled. And
yeah, because they mentioned that before. They mentioned that these special people were the ones that could hold on to memory. And everyone aspired to be it. So that, that's why when Simon was considered not gifted and given the recorder, they were just like, yeah, whatever, this kid. Do we know what rating this book is? Is it rated M for mature, or is it a YA novel? I was just surprised that
Pardon?
Yeah.
Originally, it was aimed to be a young adult because it's dystopian, and Simon's a younger person. But they actually pushed really hard for it to be an adult book, and I would agree that it's an adult book because it's one of those books where you have to work to read it, and I feel like the YA aspect of it, there just wouldn't be an audience for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can usually when I look at books and I read them, and depending on how quickly I can read them, usually signals whether it's a children's, a YA, or an adult book. And for me, this was definitely an adult read. A YA book I can probably do in a couple of days, 3 days. Even if I didn't like it, I could probably go through it just because of language. I would say just the language used in this is an adult book. It's kind of big sinkers for this one.
Yeah, I don't, and you know what? I'm trying not to be I'm trying to be as fair as possible. And there's just something about the way that she described things that put me off a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've read other books that are similar to this, kind of extremely over flowery language, but I just found myself half the time I was like, oh my god, could you just tell us that it's a dock? It's just a dock. Oh my God.
That's the thing, is that they don't know what it is. So they're coming up with all these tricks and rhymes and stuff to remember things. So they're confused. Of course, we go, oh, okay, that's what it is. But it's there for a reason, but it's still frustrating.
I think what I'll do is I'm gonna try and read it again, maybe in a year.
Yeah.
And just leave it here, and then see how I feel about it. Because I totally agree. I think because I just finished reading it, it's still very like raw, and I haven't really allowed to let it cook in my head yet. But yeah. And I thought what was really interesting was the fact that like this Caroline also sent the birds away.
Yeah.
So like only the birds, mind you. It wasn't like there were.
They create song.
Yeah.
So something else is overpowering their song and silencing it, and that's why they. I don't know. I was wondering to take a musician's point of view on it. I was listening to an interview with Anna, and I'm going to post it on the Musetta site because it's fascinating. She talks about music as a taskmaster in the way that it constantly demands perfection, and this idea that it can start controlling you, and that's kind of where she percolated. And that you're constantly, your mind wants it one way, but your body just fails, and it can't give you the thing that you want. I liked how it explored that and the idea of body memory, because that's what we do. We practice and practice until our body can remember how to do things.
That's true. Muscle memory.
Produce what we want. But it's never going to be perfection. So I thought that's one of those ideas that I wouldn't have thought of after I had read it, but now that I'm looking back on it, I kind of go, oh, yeah, I can see that. The idea of practicing something over and over and over until you get it, and then you become paralyzed with this idea that you have to do it perfectly.
Yeah. I can see that now that you kind of explained it that way. I thought that was really cool. What was some? I was trying to think of something. So the whole concept of, since we're talking about memories, the whole concept of object memory was the whole point of that, just to show that, hey, we're taking this for granted because we as human beings can do this. We can, for example, it's like if you kick a soccer ball and it hits, Mike in the face, for example, Amanda, right? Mike will always see that soccer ball and remember that incident, right? So, but you know what I mean? Like, we already have that. We have that ability to hold up something and instantly it transports us back to the, a past of like there's a history there. So like, is that whole point of object memory just the fact that like this is something that we have that's a really cool ability, and it's we shouldn't take it for granted.
It's like a little bit of magic that you can smell a certain smell and be transported. You can hold a certain thing. You can see something or hear music, and it'll completely take you back.
Yep.
Right now, my grandfather, we just put him in a home, and he's got dementia, so he's slowly losing his memory. And what we did this weekend is we took him a picture book with pictures and labeled who is who, and as soon as he opened it up and he was looking at people, he was remembering things. And so it's almost that sort of thing that he wasn't remembering them on their own, but as soon as he looked at a picture that was familiar or had a book that was familiar, he could immediately trigger it and make the connection. And so even thinking about that, I'm seeing the thing that she's put in the book actually happening in real life and going, that's kind of what he's going through. He's waking up every day, not knowing where he is, what's going on, what time it is, what the year is, but he'll look at a picture and he'll go, oh yeah, that's my daughter, and oh yeah, that's my granddaughter. And
Yeah.
just putting those things together. I like this idea that she just so physically brought into the story.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool concept because like at first I was just like, okay, everyone can do this, but then I realized, okay, but that's because every normal human can do it, and the fact that Simon can do it, that's what makes it special. And I was like, oh wow, this is like definitely something I'm taking for granted. You know, having like being someone who can remember things. I also thought it was really cool. There was a lot of music therapy things that were involved in this book, right? About, for example, like using music to show you where something is. Or, for example, at that one point where he has to give up all his memories and give them to Mary, and then what they do is, like, you know, Lucien sings the melody of the tunnels, and then at every important stop, he puts a memory there, so then that way he can always revisit them. And I was like, this is really cool. This is very much like music therapy, where that one song can transport you back to that and you remember it, even if you're completely gone and you can't remember anything. Just listening is cool enough. I don't think that was really cool. Also, what was really cool about the music was, I guess we're talking about like music now. When so like for example, the pact itself has a come all ye, and it's their melody. That's what makes them them. And when the Order finds out their come all ye, and they use it in the Carillon, to show everyone who they are. And that one instance where like I was like, oh wow, music is actually really powerful. Like it exposed them for who they were. And right at the moment, I was like, oh, the other three members are probably dead because they found them. That's the only way they would have known that melody, if they found where their pact was. That's the only way. So I was like, holy shit! Like just by doing that, she already she used that one idea to explain paragraphs of plot that we didn't need to know already. Because they were just there, and I was like, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I loved that. That was such a nice little touch there that just makes you go, huh, yeah, okay.
About that.
I think that's what's like music as identity. Was really cool in this book, right? How everyone and anyone would know exactly what it who you are, what you are, or what things were based on the I thought that was really cool. Like, you know, when they were running the tunnels, it's like, oh, this is a perfect cadence, so you turn here, and this is like, you know, this is like in 4/4 time, and then this part here is like a triplet in 3/8 time. Like, I thought that was really cool because like it talked to us about how like rhythm was based off of, you know, like rhythm and movement is, and how you remember things is by closing of a phrase where you stop somewhere, and starting of a new phrase where it takes you somewhere else. I thought that was really, really interesting, and how they had to constantly sing the melody back to each other just to make sure that they got it exactly correct. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I don't know. As someone who likes reading,
there's so many little things in this book. All the ideas are great. I just wish the characters had been more.
Yeah. Or it was put together in a way that it flowed a little bit more, or that I feel like some audiences would get without the explanation. Like, we're saying that, oh, I understand this after, I understand this after, oh, I get this so much more when the author explains all this stuff. And I think for some readers, that is such an issue, where it's like, if I don't understand this without explanation, then why am I reading this kind of thing? And when I finished it, I was kind of, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense now. Oh, that's what that meant. So it was kind of like this super long process after it, but the fact that you have to make it through, you know, 289 pages to understand the first 200 pages, I think is hard for a lot of readers, because I struggled with it. And then afterward, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of starting to appreciate it, but all these little things are such side thoughts, as opposed to if it was presented in a way that was easier understood, you would probably suck in a lot more readers, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and you know, just to be extremely fair, this is her first book as
That's
well.
true, yeah.
So I thought, like, you know, based on the fact that it's her first book, this is a pretty damn good first book, I have to say. Like, there's a lot of really cool concept that she's reading, like that she's getting into, and that to me, um, makes it very, very special. Like, I can only imagine if she were to take this concept again
Mm-hmm.
in another book, just
Yeah.
how much more cool it will be. Because
Yeah.
like I had issues getting into the book. Like I was, I mean, that I don't normally read books and finish, like, you know, I don't have a deadline for a book and then finish it the day of the deadline. That's not usually not me. I usually finish it a week or two before, right? So for
Yeah.
me, it was just like it just took a really long time for me to like I found myself having to force myself to read a lot of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally, yeah. I mean, we have mentioned that the payoff, like, it was good, but we wish that it was
Better?
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it was good payoff because it rounded everything out, and it was great because, like, like I said, it was like V for Vendetta for me.
So would you read something by her again if it was music related?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like, I mean, this was very as someone who really likes kind of like that fantasy thing, this was everything I was like I was expecting a certain thing, and I was really glad that she took it in a completely different way.
Mm.
A completely different way. Like, I was like, oh, solfege, like, you know, like a language, like magic language. Nope, not that. Like, it was an eye opener to see how someone could be so creative in a way that I spoke to kind of like issues that we have with memory loss, right?
Mm.
And taking for granted of the fact that we can't remember stuff. I thought it was really, yeah, I would totally read it again. Actually, if she were to write any other books, I would give it another shot. Like, knowing that she will keep on maturing as an author and keep on maturing and maturing and maturing. I don't know. Yeah, I would totally read another book.
I think I'd give her another shot.
Mm-hmm.
It might be just because I read so much, partially because I'm forced to and partially voluntarily, that it's when I come across a book that I kind of like, I'm not like really into, it's hard for me to give that another chance. But like, I had to remind myself this is her first book. Like I said, I really loved the idea, but it's like you said, it's like it's fine tuning the execution. Like, the idea is fantastic. I thought it was fantastic, great, but then reading it's like, okay, so this could use some work and this could use some work, but yeah, it's the fine tuning. I would give her another chance if she wrote something else.
And here's the thing. The thing is, like, if we weren't reading this book for the book club, would you have finished it?
I would probably force myself. I'm not usually. I very rarely do not finish book. Even if I hate the book, I very rarely do not finish it.
Yeah, I just don't know if I would have finished it. Because I don't know, like I said, I mean, we all read a lot, but I think I've read much less than you guys have. So I've never really been challenged yet with the book, except for like Us Conductors. I didn't like that one. But like, I mean, like, for me it's just like, because like for the most part, I would just read it, and I was like, okay, come on, give me a raven, so I can start reading. Give me a raven. Oh, raven. Okay. and I would go do something else, and then would come back. And for me, like, that's really, like, most of the books that I have, I just read. I think the only book that was challenging, but it wasn't like in this way where like I just didn't want to read it. It was just challenging because it was so hard. Was The Hour I First Believed by Wally Lamb, where it talks about the fictional Columbine shooting survivor, and that was hard. But that's because the subject matter was hard. The characters were amazing and everything was great, but it was difficult. This one was just like it was just so static for so long. I just don't know, like, if I wasn't committed to you two to finish this book, I don't know if I would have finished it, honestly.
See, that's why it's nice sometimes to have a book club. People.
Yeah, you kind of forced to do stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise,
I read this a month ago, and I'm really glad that I read it a month ago and that I had started it, because I would literally, just like you, Matt, I would pick it up, I would read a chapter, and then I'd put it down. And then the next day, I'd pick it up, I'd read a chapter, and I'd put it down. And it was so slow.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Am I missing something? And I'm going, no. And I was really worried that I had picked a dud, and I was like, oh man, you guys, you're never gonna let me let this down.
Hey, I picked Bel Canto. Oh wait, did I pick Bel Canto or did no? I picked Bel Canto, so that's okay. We're
Yeah.
we're like
Yeah, because I mean, I think like for
right
timeline,
now.
yeah, I think for my timeline of reading this book, I spent 95% of my time reading the first 280 pages.
Yeah.
And then like the last 14 pages took me like 2 minutes because it was like I was like yes, 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 and then it was finished.
Well,
And I was
that's
very
why I
sad.
read the end so many times because I went, well, it moves so fastly, and I now know what's going on. So I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read it again. That was good.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So I guess we all agree that music as a theme was pretty strong in this book.
Oh yeah. No, I could barely notice it at all.
It's kind of refreshing to have the comparison between Bel Canto and this one.
Yeah.
Being written by a non-musician, being written by a musician, I like that comparison. I like that we've gotten both sides now.
Yeah.
I was thinking that in a lot of ways this was very they're very opposite, the two books. Just from like aside from just authors, it was like you had Bel Canto where you had these characters, you're like, oh, but I want to have a relationship with this one. Oh, I want to have a relationship with this one. I want to know this one more. And then you have this one where you have characters, they're like, okay, they're dead. Cool, next character.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had,
this one's plot-driven, where the other one was character-driven.
A little bit, and just even just the style that it was written in. Like Bel Canto, we all very well easily understood.
Mm-hmm.
But there, the music was there and kind of not there.
Yeah.
And then this one is like music in your face, so much that here's some vocabulary words that you now know. So it was it was interesting to finish this and be like, that was a very. I actually remember sitting back and being like, there was a lot of terms in there that I haven't used in a few years that I somehow still remember while reading this book.
No, I totally agree. I think as like music as a theme, like music was perpetually in every sentence, every paragraph. You were living and breathing it the entire time, and I totally agree. I also agree that like this was more plot driven than it was character driven, even though the plot was very slow at the very beginning.
Yes.
But maybe she was planning to do like maybe the entire book wasn't a celerendo. We don't know, right?
Oh.
Maybe she was doing it on purpose. Like and we like that's like Inception.
Inception.
Yeah, it just got really really fast right at the end, right? But I think it had what is it called? Like there's these 3 R's. And I think if any of my friends decide to like call me out, and it's great. But I think the 3 R's to making a really good story are revolt, rumble, revolution. And what a revolt is that like you get this like, oh, something is wrong, and something is happening, and there's just some discord. And then rumble is where it gets solved, and then revolution. I think revolution in this case is really small.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the first 2, like it was a lot of revolt and a little bit of rumble, and it almost no revolution because you don't get a chance to figure out what the result is. But like those are the 3 R's that make up a good story, and that's why Pixar is really good at doing storylines because they know how to balance those 3 so well. And I think second, third book I would totally read. Maybe I'll wait for her 3rd or 4th book or something like that. She really starts like to mature as an author. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice.
Do we have an idea for what our next book?
Yeah, Poon said the reveal is tonight.
Yeah. Okay. So I took the liberty of just buying everybody a copy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So Bel Canto and the Chimes. I also made an effort to buy 2 copies of each. I'm going to be giving 1 of each copy to the public library that's near me. So if any of you guys want to read it in Victoria, but you guys didn't get a chance to read it, it's going to be there in the next week or 2, so you guys can pick it up. I'm going to start doing that with all the other books as well, so then that way there's something, like there's public copies out there if you need it. But the book that I chose is called Basket Case by Carl Hiaasen. His last name is Iaasen. I don't know how that's pronounced, but
Haagensen, H-A-A.
Oh, so Hiaasen. So Hiaasen.
I think it's just Hiaasen.
Hiaasen? Okay.
Or something like that.
Yeah, but the book is a. Do you guys want me to read the book description for you guys?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So, once a hotshot investigative reporter, Jack Taggart now bangs out obituaries for a South Florida daily, plotting to resurrect my career by yoking my byline to some famous stiff. Jimmy Stoma, the infamous frontman of Jimmy and the Slut Puppies, dead in a fishy-smelling scuba accident, may be just the stiff Jack needs, if only he can figure out what happened. Standing in the way are, among others, an editor who wants Jack to break her cherry, Stoma's ambitious pop singer widow, and the soulless, profit-hungry newspaper owner Jack once publicly humiliated. As clues from Stoma's music give Jack Taggart the chance to trade obits for a story that could hit the front page, murder gives his career a new lease on life. So, kind of sort. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like you found the book that you've been looking for.
Yeah. So like kind of like urban noir, where like this kind of detective guy kind of tries to like investigate and solve the murder of a musician. So I think it's going to be completely different than the other two books that we've read, but I'm really excited because I've been looking forever.
I can't believe how hard you've been trying to find this book.
Also, it's published in 2005. Most of the other books that I found were like pre-1990. I was like, no, let's find something a little bit more more urban and more close to like our age.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be that book.
Okay.
And I don't know. I've read some reviews on it, like no spoiler reviews.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's similar to Bel Canto and the Chimes. It's very hit or miss. Some people really liked it, or some people really didn't. And this author has a pretty strong following. So a lot of his own his own followers like chimed in on the differences between these books and some of his books. So if you're interested, he does have other books. And all of them have really cool book covers. This one is also a New York Times bestseller, Amanda. Not that it means much, but that's the book. So I'll let you know once it comes in, and then I'll send it to you guys. Amanda, I'm probably going to come visit you in the summer sometime anyway,
probably.
So I'll give it to you. But yeah, that's the book. I'll post a link to everything and stuff. And like I said, hopefully it'll be a little bit different and a little bit more fun in a different way. I know that it's not going to be as like music is everything compared to what we just read tonight, but it'll be interesting to see, a spin on like two genres, like music and then adding it into noir, which will be really fun. And I'm really hoping that our last pick will be a romance novel, because I think that would be also really fun.
I think
it's Amanda's pick, right?
Yeah, I'll spend some time in Long McQuaid in the romance section. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. All right, I think that's everything. I think.
Oh my God, I think I said Long McQuaid when I meant to say chapters.
Chapters, yeah, it's okay. I just assumed you meant chapters, and I was like, yeah, whatever.
Did you know that Long McQuaid has a romance section?
Wouldn't that be great? Actually, Amanda, if you're interested, I have started looking up romance novels with music themes.
Oh my God.
So I'll send you some of them, and then you can, from there, do your research. I honestly think
with recommendations on Goodreads. This one.
I'm gonna look at them like, hey, Poon, this is erotica, not a romance.
Hey, I feel like it's okay. All I just have to put down is just NSFW, and then our videos will be fine. I think here's the thing: recommend whatever you want. If there's sex in it, the better. Because like I said, I've always wanted to figure out musical innuendos and puns for things.
Music is very sturdy.
Yeah, his hard and sturdy bassoon. I don't know. It would have been cool.
As long as we're in that web at school, we're all good.
Yeah, but I will say that the stuff that I found, like for romance novels, is mainly bands. like
Yeah.
rocker stuff. Like it would be really cool to find something like orchestral. Wouldn't that be great?
See, orchestral flute player.
Oh man, wouldn't that be great? It'd be, or no, it'd be even better if he was a Yaws flute player.
Oh yeah. Will she make first chair or will she not?
Yeah.
Just sleep with the conductor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said,
Born.
it would be really fun. But anyways, that's the book for our next, which is like August. So it's not going to be a while till we do it. So hopefully you get, like I said, I'll get the copies as quickly out to you. It's a little bit longer than Chimes. It is at our limit of 400 pages, this book. So hopefully it's a quick read, and hopefully it's not like a slogger. But if not...
That sounds like a quick read, though.
Yeah, if not... Yeah, that's true. Hopefully. But if not, we're committed to one another to finish the books, right? So...
We are!
So thank you everybody for joining us. It was really fun, and this book, it was a nice surprise. I thought it was really cool.
It was interesting.
It was really interesting. We'll see you guys again in 3 months. In the meantime, what I'll do is like I'll post this, and then and yeah, in a week or two, hopefully, if you guys, I believe I'm going to be giving the books to the Nellie McClung Library in Gordon Head. So if you guys are around and you guys need a copy of it, just go there and find it.
Okay.
But until then, we'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.